back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and this week we had, well, a badass Minnesota Search Summit get-together, first time in 3 years, booyah! We got a new search engine on the map, yep. No, that's what it's called. It's called Yep. We've got a nifty little solution of getting your data, historical data from GA3 over to GA4. But first, the Google 2022 Algo update has been rolled out. It's done. As of June 9th, it's a done deal. That's what Twitter said. Started the 25th. We saw some mountains. We saw some valleys. We saw some winners. We saw some losers. We'll see what happens. Now, don't forget that despite the actual update, the announced update being done, SERPs fluctuate a lot. There is volatility constantly, but like the massive core update volatility should be over. Should be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. We will keep our eyes peeled, see what happens, see what SEOs are seeing when it comes to the update. So the team at Google Chrome put out an interesting blog post all about how they use machine learning to improve your experience. Now, Chrome isn't directly tied to SEO. It's not like it's actually impacted outside of Discover. Google Discover is part of a Google Tools, Google Chrome and the Google mobile app. That said, it's very interesting. So back in February, they launched Journeys, which is a way to kind of take all of the different websites that you visit that are related and keep them into one place, so you don't have to go like scrolling through your timeline, to find what you searched for. The interesting thing is, it almost seems kind of like a parallel to what they're doing with Mum, kind of getting the context, but also translating using a lot of, multi-language. So what they're doing with Chrome is they're actually identifying, where the websites have been translated into the language that you use. Just a better experience using Chrome, but I just thought it was interesting how it feels so tied to Mum and what they're doing with the actual SERPs. So Ahrefs, I got beef. Okay, I'm not mad that you dropped your new search engine right after I shot the SEO Weekly last Friday, or the Friday before, but I did think it was valuable enough to include in this week's SEO Weekly. So if you haven't heard, Ahrefs is dropping $60 million investing into their own search engine called Yep. Now, what is the unique value proposition of this search engine? Well, instead of all of the advertising dollars going back to Ahrefs, they are actually splitting it with content creators 90-10. So all the advertising revenue goes to the people who are in the search results. It sounds awesome. Only problem is the search results aren't very good yet. It's gonna take a lot of time to get to the point where you can provide the type of user experience and search results that Google does. I did some tests myself, and when I Googled Garrett Sussman, yep. When I Googled search engine optimization, yep. And when I Googled restaurants near me, yep. Nope. We'll see. I hope it's better. Obviously, more search engine options is better for people at large. We don't necessarily want a monopoly. I think competition breeds innovation. So keep our eyes peeled and see what happens with Yep. So last week, the Minnesota Search Summit happened. It was an in-person conference. To be seen whether or not any of the talks that happened there will be put out via slide decks or video replays that you can purchase, but it looked like it was a really good time. There are a lot of great speakers from the industry in there. Some that caught my attention that I thought were really cool was, for instance, Jamie Indigo talked about topics, taxonomies, and tabaxis. I don't even know what tabaxis is. Navigating entities in SERPs. Nikki Mosier did From the Ground Up, building a content strategy strategy for a niche industry. Chris Long had data and keyword segmentation answering complex SEO questions. Cider Shepard did some internal linking discussions. All in all, looked like a great event. I didn't make it to Minnesota. I'm not doing conferences yet. Hopefully you are, and you got a chance to check it out. But appreciate a good conference, getting back in person after this whole pandemic thing. Kudos to you. When it comes to Twitter threads, so Keith Goode, he did a really interesting one all about technical SEO and prioritization. Basically, he just pointed out this idea that, as a tech SEO, you want to do all the things. You want to go to your devs and say, let's do this, and this. The reality is you can't fix all the things, and maybe it's not even the best idea to fix every little imperfection. So his recommendation is the best thing is to prioritize. Have all the different issues that affect crawling, indexability, and actual rankings. Go to your devs with the priority of like most important, least important, that sort of thing. Ultimately, you won't look unprepared and unorganized, and you'll actually get more done that way. Neeva, speaking of search engine competitors, Neeva, if you've never used Neeva, very interesting. They kind of were explaining the way that they approach search and the concept of textual relevance, but how textual relevance, like using the right keywords, isn't the only way to get the right query in front of you. They talked a little bit about TF-IDF, like term frequency and inverse document frequency as just one part of the equation. The idea of that, using a certain keyword and how many times it shows up in your document versus how many times it's relevant in other documents to show the relevancy. But then they explained how beyond that, do you penalize, longer forms of content because it doesn't get to the point right away, even if it's more in depth? How do you take into consideration like authority and links and all these other things? And they kind of went through it in their Twitter thread. Interesting read of how like a different search engine thinks about ranking factors in essence. And Tom Critchlow, so he kind of released a new version of his SEO MBA. This is specifically targeted at SEO agencies and communication with clients and why agencies generally suck when it comes to communicating with clients. And it's not an easy sort of thing, especially when SEO can have a lot of lift. And so what he talks about is like kind of 6 ideas in this. This is an epic Twitter thread where he goes through a lot of the things that are most likely covered in his course. You should check it out. He just released that and it's available to sign up. But he talked through resisting short-term value, always giving context for your communications, reducing the complexity, when your clients only have a certain amount of time and you don't want to try to get into the nitty-gritty. Keep it simple, keep it short, tie your recommendations to business value. Don't say we should, but instead say there's opportunity to, kind of placing the opportunity there, and then pitch for your ideas. He talks a lot about presentations and the reality of presentations. Like you might have this whole long, beautiful thing set up, but it can get interrupted by the CEO. It can get interrupted by different people in the organization, or like a question will be asked this towards the end. So keep it simple. His whole thread, the great thing about the thread is it explains different concepts really well and shows examples. So Tom's brilliant. Follow him. Semrush, not really a thread, but they were a little quirky. If famous novels were written by digital marketers, a little graphic, just a little hoo-hoo ha-ha. I liked it. Some of the favorites were, the great Google, like the great Gatsby, the perks of being a digital marketer, and the Moby Click. I don't know. What's your favorite if you play that game? I don't know. I love Semrush. Their social is on point. When it comes to the world of general SEO, so we had how to earn topical authority, which Zoe Ashburn. Zoe talks all about, this idea of what is topic authority, how do you earn it, like how do you become the go-to when it comes to search results and any sort of queries relevant to your topic. She said, obviously make sure you cover it in breadth and in depth. Make sure you're keeping up with the current events that are relevant to the topic. Create well-researched content, so it's okay to link or reference other articles in your area. It just shows you did your research, and then update the content to keep it fresh. And one interesting thing that she found was like a sign that you have topical authority is if you're seeing your site get indented search results. So not just one result for a query, but you're seeing one result and then a second indented result. It obviously is not a form of keyword cannibalism because you're not getting like penalized, you're not falling down and not being indented. But if you're indented, it means that Google understands that you are an authority, but you're getting more kind of SERP space. Ideally, you get indented like on page 1. But it's a great article by Zoe. Check that out on Moz. And then Jake Sheridan on Ahrefs did a really great deep dive all about FAQs, but specifically like FAQs for SEO. He had a bunch of different examples. He showed the value of FAQs for SEO and then also how to like actually get the FAQ structured data on your site so you're eligible for those SERP features. So he breaks it down like a great Ahref post. He even explained how you can identify specific questions for your FAQs using either Ahrefs or using just manual on Google search. Awesome article by Jake. Check that out. So for anyone who uses Google Analytics for tracking their website performance, there's this major issue going on where Google announced that Universal Analytics GA3 is actually going to be sunset sometime in 2023 and everyone's going to have to use GA4. GA4 is dramatically, foundationally different than Universal Analytics. It's not apples to apples with the type of data that, is tracking. So you can't just take your historical Universal Analytics data and migrate it over to GA4 until now. J.R. Oakes, Joe Joyner, and Savannah Castro of Locomotive worked together with Derek Perkins of Nozzle to create an open source solution to stitch together the data, basically label it correctly so you can, and figure out like as close as you can the apples to apples, bring it over from Universal Analytics to GA4. They have a whole GitHub repository that you can access for free. Super amazing work, really useful and thoughtful. Great work from the team there. If you have any questions, definitely hit up JR Oakes on Twitter. But that's a big deal. That's a big deal because that was a major problem. And not that it's 100% solved, but great step in the direction as opposed to your only solution being use GA4 now and you're effed, for anything prior to that. Andy Volpini of WordLift did another awesome e-commerce article all around semantic SEO. This one specifically about related searches, basically showing you how to build a related search widget using a Collab that he built that you can access. It's super cool because the SEO value of related searches is it reduces the click depth, so you don't have to click 5 million things to get to where you want to get with a related search. It interlinks, using anchor text that you have, that you have a little more control over for relevant keywords. Internal linking obviously is going to help in terms of distributing your page rank and distributing your link equity. So a really cool widget. He has some great examples, obviously from like Amazon and Alibaba of how you can do related search and examples from Google as well. Now you can kind of do that on your own semantically with your e-commerce site, especially if you have like a ton of pages and products. And he has like the technical breakdown of how you can do that. Great work by Andy and the team there. And our own iPullrank blog, we had like the 8 top technical SEO challenges for large websites. Andrew McDermott like broke it down. It was really fun to work with him on this post, but identifying things like, misusing your crawl budget, making sure that you have the appropriate context parity. So making sure that the content, the words on your mobile device are also on desktop and vice versa. Dealing with JavaScript SEO rendering issues, poor internal linking structures, or like site architecture issues. He breaks down these major challenges, and when you're working with a large website, it can be a big lift to fix, but it's also really, really important ultimately in terms of rankings, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get a lot of market share when you fix some of those big issues. We're not talking Keith Goode, like tiny issues and getting, crossing all T's and dotting I's. We're talking like big challenges. And finally, if you did miss the content rebalancing framework webinar that Kyle and I did a couple weeks ago, we did a recap. We did a whole blog post where you can get access to that spreadsheet. It was so much fun talking about how you can take all of your old content by topic cluster and redistribute the link equity by redirecting some old trash pages that still have some link juice. I said link juice. Still have some link equity from backlinks, from merging, from updating, from refreshing, and doing that all systematically with an appropriate cadence, like doing it at a timely manner based on specific circumstances, whether it's just something you need to do every year or something, has changed majorly in your industry and it's time for a refresh or update. Check out the recap of the webinar. That's about it. Honestly, if you enjoyed this, if you got a kick out of this SEO stuff, please subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and this has been the SEO Weekly. We will check you out next Monday. Check me out next Monday. I'll catch you later.